Hi, Masetori Makhetha. Chief Physical Planner, Ministry of Local Government and Chieftainship. Masetori Matso. Presentation I to buaka influence ya town planning ho culture Lesotho monana. Kopa le thole, like I said, ha le sa thole le tla tswa. Over to you, Mayor.
The town planner comes with I want to talk about the influence of town planning on culture. What is culture? What is culture? Impa ha le bua mona informally ka mkhantsa ke culture ya bona ke culture ya rona. What is culture? Alemong culture ke ha ke utlwe ho hang. What is culture? Metro ai khona it's a custom king. So okay, so let me start by saying I will start with some definitions. So on the first slide, I try to explain what is urban planning. Urban planning is both a science and an art. Why is it a science? It's a science because you can replicate it. It can be replicated. It's an art because it involves design. So that is why even when you go to universities, you find that some universities offer an MSc in planning, others offer MA in planning because it is both a science and an art. So it is a technical and political process of development and design of land use and the built environment. It is also a deliberate process of achieving sustainable development. So once you say something is deliberate, it is because you choose to do it. So if your choices are in such a way that you won't see the effects of town planning, don't blame anybody, blame yourself and say, those are the choices that I made. It is a very complex process because it intersects the realm of politics, human behavior, infrastructure, science, engineering, art, and environment. So I remember when we were in school, after our course was completed, somebody asked, so what is planning? How do you do planning? And the lecturer said, all that we have learned is planning. So the conclusion at that time was, okay, so if you want to be a planner, it means you're doing the donkey work because you have to coordinate in a way the work of architects, the work of engineers, the work of society groups, interest groups. It is not easy. It is very, very complex. So whenever you are dealing with something that is complex, the results are always mixed. Always mixed. So, for example, I will take the next definition of what is culture. It's a summation of ideas, customs, social behavior of a particular people or society. It encompasses language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, art, architecture, and everything that we can think of that composes culture. So, in the end, it is a cumulative deposit of knowledge, experience, beliefs, values, meanings, spatial relations, and objects and possessions acquired by a group of people through generations. So, for example, when we say meanings, ha ke re la tseba mona Lesotho mona o tla utlwa go thwe motho la disababong ke kae? Mohlala kae? Maswe. So what is the definition? What is the definition of a suburb? Suburb. So Lesotho Mona, we have imparted on the suburb, which is suburban. Its origin is that is a place which is suburban, which is not yet fully urban. But here we take maybe high-class residences or maybe desirable places, and then we call them suburbs. So you see in Lesotho when somebody is talking about a suburb, so when somebody is referring to a suburb, in Lesotho, they mean something completely different from what a suburb is or what a suburban area is. Next, what's my... So in the elements of our culture or our language, we have what we call a mall. What is a mall? What is a mall? Somebody says Masetori Mall, but originally the word came from Pall Mall, which refers to a grass lawn on which a game was played. And the lawn was called a mall. It had nothing to do with buildings. It had nothing to do with shopping. And they don't know. They mean bailo bloma on a grass lawn. So this definition of a mall, it was adopted by designers in both London and in the US, where King Charles II used to play Pall Mall in St. James Park in London, near what is now Buckingham Palace. And this was in the 1700s. So the same years, 1700s to 1800, the government of the United States employed a designer to design Washington, D.C., which is the capital of the United States. And the designer's name was Pierre Charles L'Enfant, who was a French military engineer who designed the basic plan for Washington, D.C. And he also adopted the use of the word mall to decide to to describe whatever it is that he was doing. So that is why now when you go to Washington, D.C., there's a place called the National Mall. But also, that mall has nothing to do with shopping. It's a wide avenue with trees and with a lawn where people can just walk and rest and exercise. Subsequent designers also adopted the word mall. For example, Frederick Law Olmsted who was an American landscape architect who designed many famous parks in the US. For example, the Central Park in New York City, Cadwalader Park in Trenton, and a system of parks and parkways in Buffalo, New York, and the Niagara Reservation, also in New York, which incidentally is also one of the first planned communities in the US. So at that time, people, when they were talking about the mall, they were now referring to a place with wide avenue, with trees, and basically where somebody could rest and enjoy life. So in the 1800s, designers, surveyors, and planners adopted the name mall again to describe wide tree-lined avenues where people strolled and socialized. So the only thing that maybe that the shopping mall has adopted from the original definition of the mall is that it is a place where people can socialize. That is why people, especially of your age, baya molo, balo bloma, balo socialize. So in the 1950s, the mall now came to describe a retail complex containing a variety of stores and restaurants and other business establishments housed in a series of connected or adjacent buildings in a large single building, which maybe use the concepts of design, a park, and an avenue. So if you go to Gaborone, for example, there's a place where they call the Old Mall. There's nothing mall about it because it is a series of interconnected buildings. It is not a large complex of different shops, but it's called a mall nevertheless. So the other thing that town planning has imparted on our culture is the central business district. Now when people you hear it almost in everyday conversation. People will be saying in the CBD this, that, this and that in the CBD. And in my heart I say they don't know that CBD is a town planning term which refers to the central business district, which denotes the center of the city where the commercial hub of the city is, and it is the most accessible part of town. But now you hear people every day, even on the radio, you hear somebody say, Mana CBD, where's Alajina, Mana CBD, they don't know where the term comes from. And the other term is the informal sector. The informal sector describes a part of the economy that is neither taxed nor monitored by any form of government. Activities of the informal economy are not included in the country's GDP or GNP. But you hear people ba Lesotho mona ba rata go gona ga ba itshukudi gona ga batla hona ga batla hwane gona ga ba itshukudi. So motho a ntse a re ke motshukudi a bolela go sebetsa in the informal sector o bolela go o tsekela ditukelo tsa gore ebe o sebetsa sectoreng e sa taxwing e sa baleng ha ho bua ka GDP le GNP, which is gross national product, le gross domestic product. So so that is one of the ways in which our culture has been influenced by town planning, whether we know it or not. The other one is infrastructure. So infrastructure connotes that fundamental facilities and systems serving a country, a city or an area necessary for its economy to function. Infrastructure can be divided into two broad categories, being the economic infrastructure and social infrastructure. So you see people or you hear people demanding services that we require roads, we want paved streets, we want all kinds of services. In fact, in Lesotho, infrastructure is referred to as services. So that is one of the things that have been imparted on our culture and on our daily conversations from town planning. The other one I talked about is the suburb, which denotes a place outside the city boundaries that is not yet fully urban. But like I said, here it refers to maybe what people consider to be desirable housing areas or desirable houses. Those are not suburbs. Those are part of town. And people refer to them as suburbs. So as older people, when we were growing up, there were not so many areas with good housing. And people would be proud to be living in Masetori West and saying, Baduladi Sababu. That's not a suburb. It's not. It's right within the city limits, but the language that we use made it like that a suburb denotes that kind of residential development. So the other things that town planning have imparted on our culture is mostly in the entertainment sphere. Because when you're doing planning, you plan for housing, you plan for roads, you plan for residentials, you plan for everything. And all those demarcations or all those things that you will describe maybe in town planning terms as land use classes. Now they get into the common usage and people will like to go to clubs. And then they develop another term, which is clubbing. We are going clubbing. Then there are parks. People will be saying we like places where we would rest, and they are called parks. dance halls, theaters, sports centers. But why be hip hop? Why be like I hand? Hi, guys, and it's hip hop. Eh? Where? Where do they sing? Where's the stage? Everywhere. But you don't want to tell us. So, in order for conclusion, I say culture is dynamic and it's always changing. I am totally against ditaba tse mona tse o tla fumana batho ba tenne diphahlo tse neng di tenwa pele malapi a etswa e be ba re ke culture. I'm saying it cannot be. But the name is Kgomo, but the name Ditsia. Those belong to another era. Hamalapia no so Hamalapia science. How do you say those things to culture? And yet when I read the baki, the got suiti, the got in toxic of fellas. Culture ya change. I do link language fella, language ya chincha. So in this evolution, your culture, technology has a role to play. Only specialization. So earlier in the decade, or whenever it was, when people didn't know much about cell phones, if you were to talk to maybe somebody as old as I am and talk about a cell phone, they didn't even know what it was called. I remember one lady, her son misplaced his cell phone. So because she was an old woman, she didn't know what it was called. And then she kept on saying, because it is something flat and she doesn't know what it is. But now, if you talk to anybody, even 80-year-olds, they will tell you, kinale cell phone, so technology ya chincha, culture ya chincha. Decades ago, you couldn't see a cell phone. We only had landlines. So everything changes. And the practices also change. So you have also subcultures that emerge. You have the culture who Bloma, for example. In the village there, hauna muthu a reng o lo bloma. Ho bloma batho ba toropong mo. Sometimes ba bloma molong, sometimes ba bloma maybe on a raised part of the road or whatever. But the subculture tsona dia image. So hona tjena na motswadi emlemlemlemo. Ha bana ba le siko. O tla o hlalosetsa ba ilo bloma because what tsebana ho bloma ke. But 20 years ago it was unthinkable for motho a go lo bloma. Ke a leboha ke kopa ke felle hona mona.